Yes. Yes, I think I'm on. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Interpreting Tradition. You know that I have lots of books that I'm reading and so on. But I about 10 days ago I started um, doing some little chats, just about things that come to my mind and so on, perhaps influenced by what I'm reading or something like that brings back memories of things. And since it's about, these chats are mainly about a world that no longer exists, uh, I thought I would share with you just a few memories today uh, of when I was a child, because the world was, it was like, even though this was in the 50s, it was really like, 500 years ago, a completely different world. Um, what I remembered today, because I was reading something and I remembered back to, so I'm going to share it with you. Um, I think about when I was 7 or 8. My mother came to take me home um, from the orphanage. And uh, let me tell you that this place was, it was not only for abandoned children, which is what probably comes to mind when you think of an orphanage, but it was also for very poor kids who, because of the circumstances of life, their parents would not be able to keep them. Before my time, I think it was about this is in the 50s, I think during the time of the Civil War in Spain, 1936-39, and for the decade after, things were so bad that the nuns would actually have a rotating table at the front there, and they would go every so often and they would find a baby there, something like that. That was stopped. That was before my time. That was stopped, and then things had to be, you had to go to the council and register and so on. So things were done properly. But that was what had happened before. Um, so some of us did have parents. Anyway, so uh, I was taken home, and this is what I want to share with you because of the experiences of how people lived in those days. Um, there was no running water. The women would go to the fountain spring, the local fountain spring there, and carry uh, the water on their heads uh, and take it home. And it also was the place where, there by the fountain spring, there was a little pool, and that is where they washed their clothes. I loved to go there and listen to the women talking. It was very well sort of made up there. It was like a little theater. You had the fountain spring, then there was the pool, and around the pool they would have stones where they actually did the washing there. Okay, sort of placed perpendicularly, I suppose, and then a flat stone right in front of it where they would get on their knees, put a towel on top, and they, on their knees, they would wash their clothes there. But really, it was a place where women talked. There were always, 5, 10 women there talking, and it was like the local newspaper there. That is where you learned everything that was going on. And I loved listening to the women talking. I would go on top of the fountains, a little hill on top of the fountain spring there, and listen to them talking. And every now and then, one of them would look up and say, "What are you doing there? Go away. What are you doing there listening to grown-ups talking and so on? And I would pretend to leave, but then come back and listen to the stories they were telling. So there you found everything that was going on in the little village, whose husband got drunk and was left outside. I remember one story about one woman kicking him out because he had come home drunk, and he was there outside, sort of pleading, "Please let me in, let me in. I want to sleep. I want to go to bed." And the woman opened the window and said, "You want to go to bed here?" And she threw a mattress through the window and sleep there, she said. So this was, uh, it was, I think my love for words actually came from those early experiences of hearing these women talk. Also, the fact that I learned how to carry water on my head. Um, the women would take, I don't have a cloth here, but the woman would just get a cloth, make a round sort of wheel out of it, place it on their heads, and then take the water like that and carry it home. And the children were encouraged to learn, the little girls. So you would have, instead of carrying a huge bucket there, you would have a little one, but you learn how to carry it. And we all wanted to learn. It was something. It was like being grown up, the way we saw it. Many, many years later, in my 20s, at university, I remember a friend of mine one day in the pub. We were having a drink, and she said to me, "Were you ever a ballerina, or you took ballet lessons?" I said, "Ballet lessons? No, I've never taken." Because she said, "Because you sort of you walk like a ballerina." My body shape is the opposite of a ballerina. I was in my 20s. I was thin, but I mean I'm very short, the opposite of a ballerina. But I said, "Ballet lessons, ballerina, what on earth are you talking about?" She said, "No." And then she actually pinned it down a little bit, and she said, "I think it's the way you walk, because you walk sort of with your head like that and so on." And I said, "Oh, that didn't come from ballet lessons. That came from carrying water on my head." What? Uh, because you see, I'll explain it to you, since you insist that I tell you about it. You have to keep your head and your body straight. You actually walk from your hips down. You move your hips and your legs, but this remains very, very straight. So you walk. I can still carry things on my head, to tell you the truth. Okay, so also what I learned in that summer when I went home was that I was taken to be with my aunts and uncles from my father's side, and they lived in the country. And that's a whole new story. I have to. Okay, so what I learned there, I observed several things. First, my cousins, who were about my age, they had they were peasants, and they had animals and so on. My cousins would part their daily task. One of them would be to take the cows and to graze and so on, and I would go with them. And it was a completely different life. There was no discipline, in the sense of, now is breakfast time, now you go to school, to the classroom, now you go to lunch. No, it was a sort of a free flowing life. They were very free, my cousins, to do that. And they were very responsible. They were almost like adults, actually. Um, and I noticed that they all knew each other, all the people in the village. And if we were walking along, if you're going this way and someone else was coming this way, instead of just saying hello, good morning, and so on, no, you couldn't do that. That was rude. They had to stop and talk. And usually the first question was, hello, and who is this little girl? Me. And my cousin would say, she is the daughter of my deceased uncle, God rest in peace, and so on. Oh. And then they would talk for a little while, then we would continue walking, and someone else would come along and say, and who is this little, oh, she's, you couldn't just say good morning, you couldn't just say goodbye, they had to stop. I thought that was strange or different. Anyway, um, what else did I learn? Then I learned about my family's past. I heard them tell stories about the family and, you know, the brothers and sisters and so on. And this is what I learned from my father's side. Uh, it was, it's like you couldn't make it up. I mean, but this this happened at the beginning of the 20th century, in the 1910s and 20s. Um, my my grandparents had, on my father's side, had emigrated to Cuba, and there they had three. They came from two adjoining villages, and they met in Cuba. And then after they had three children or so, they came back. And they came back with a little bit of money, and they were able to purchase some land or something like that. And apparently my grandmother died suddenly, and there were 7 children there. And my grandfather, in the family, they say that he went mad. He got involved with this local woman who was, you know, in every village there is always a mad person, something, or a village fool, something like that, but someone who is eccentric enough to not follow the rules of the village that everyone understands. And he took up with this woman and kicked the children, the 7 children, out of the house. They had to go. The eldest was 15 years old, my eldest aunt, and my father, I believe, was 11. He was the third, and then there were little ones. And my aunt, at the age of 15, took over the responsibility of all the children and made the house in the stable of the house. So that is where they grew up, in the stable that she made a home for all of them, and she brought them all up, including my father. And you're not going to believe this. My father, at the age of 13, discovered a mine, tungsten, and apparently, according to the family legend, he became rich. He was selling this tungsten, they said, to Germans or someone. In the family, they say the Germans. I don't know. Anyway, so he had all this bunch of money, cash, and he would keep it in a suitcase under the bed. And my aunt said to him, I don't know what you are doing, but nothing good can come of having so much money all of a sudden. I don't know what you're doing, but please stop, because I don't want lawyers and I don't want the police and I don't want anybody from the government, typical peasant, to at my door. So I don't know what happened. I think he sold the mine, but he was 13, and for a while he was rich there. I don't know what. Um, but how my grandfather ended up going to Cuba, where he met my grandmother, was that he had a girlfriend, and this girlfriend had just had someone who died in her family, a second cousin or something. And in those days, you had to wear black, or men had to wear a black thing here, and but you couldn't go dancing or anything. And it was the local fiesta, and apparently my grandmother said to her, "Well, come dancing. I will meet you there." And she said, "Oh, I can't, because someone in my family died." And he said, "I want you to be there and I want you to be at the dance." Well, she didn't go, of course. And then the next thing he told her, if you don't come, he threatened her, "If you don't come, I'll emigrate to Argentina." But she didn't go, of course. And the next day, he actually went to the big city and tried to go to Argentina. There weren't any boats going to Argentina, so the next one was to Cuba. So off he went to Cuba. That is how he ended up in Cuba, and he married the girl from the next village in Cuba. Amazing story. On my mother's side, my grandmother, also in a tiny village, she was the most beautiful girl in the village. And anyway, she got pregnant. The man was a Portuguese, an outsider. But anyway, she was apparently, again, according to family legend, very, very much in love with him. And but the women come to help the young girl. She was about 16 or 17. And all the women gather around her and support her and so on. So that was not a problem as such. That was she got pregnant with my mother. The problem was that she got pregnant again. And the second time, well, the women are not quite there, because something is going on here. This was not just an accident kind of thing, because they all agreed. The women, they said, "Oh, men, they only want one thing." But when you get pregnant for the second time, then, oh, well, So anyway, she felt uncomfortable in the village. And one day, she waited for everyone, and after Mass, when everyone was there, as they were coming out, she said to them, "I know you want me to leave the village. Well, I'll leave, but I will come back one day, and I will come back married and with my own sewing machine." So there. She was a wonderful seamstress, actually, my grandmother. So here I am. Okay, so look at my family, where I come from, my roots. One says, "I'll go off to Argentina just because someone else doesn't come to the dance." And on my grandmother's side, "I will come back with my own sewing machine." So I feel that I owe them something there, because there is a certain spark here to their personalities. Anyway, so that was a one particular summer where I went from a very strict sort of life, you know, very disciplined and so on, to complete freedom, where you could just get up and walk, and um, my cousin's complete freedom. There were two extremes that I experienced, and they made. And I thought about it, what different lives they had. I remember that one of the things I had to do that summer was to go and get the milk, because there were women were giving milk as a charity thing. You would have to go and get the milk. It was from some other nuns, and every day they would give you a bottle of milk. And that was a very important thing. You couldn't forget. I couldn't forget. My mother said, you must not forget to go, you know. So that was the thing I had. At 5 o'clock, I had to go with the empty bottle, go and get the milk and come and bring home the bottle of milk that they gave us. Um, okay, so I'll tell you some. I don't want this to be too long. So that is, you might say, why are you telling us this? I don't know. I just, I'm just going to go through different aspects because I think that I have reached the age where I'm in my 70s, and so all of us at that age, we have more memories than we have hopes. Perhaps we don't have long to go, as it were. I don't say this in a despairing or you know, it's just a fact. So I'm thinking back because I remember my life with a certain warmth. Really, I think that I don't want to say I don't have any regrets. That's silly. But it was a plentiful life in many ways. And why do oh, I tell you what, I tell you why I thought of saying this. And now it just comes to me with the word plentiful. I'm going to read you little quote um, from Dostoevsky. I think this comes from the Brothers Karamazov. I write things down sometimes, and he's talking about the rich and the poor and so on. He says, and what is the result of this right to this endless multiplication of needs? Among the rich, the result is solitariness, loneliness, and spiritual suicide. And among the poor, this is in the 1860s, and among the poor, envy and murder. For while they have been given rights, they have not yet been afforded the means with which to satisfy their needs. They have rights, but they have no means to satisfy those rights. And then he says, in constructing freedom as the rich do, as the multiplication and speedy satisfaction of needs, they distort their own nature, for they engender within themselves many senseless and stupid desires, habits, and most absurd inventions. They have they live solely for envy, love of the flesh, and self-conceit, and they have reached the point where the quantity of objects they amass is ever greater, but the joy is ever smaller. Yeah, that is why I was thinking about poverty for some reason. Bye bye. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.